Dr. Mori, Uncivilized Vitality, and today's video is going to be an explanation, a little more explanation of what the Uncivilized Vitality method is. In a certain aspect, I was talking to one of the members a couple days ago. We got into the subject of politics and kind of where Uncivilized Vitality and its philosophical basis sort of falls on that. And not to get political, so don't skip ahead. But I just wanted to make some clarifications because in Uncivilized Vitality, one of the 5 vital paths is community. And one of the steps is communicate on purpose or clear communication. And for that, we always rely on the Socratic method of first defining the terms. So let's talk about politics a little bit and Uncivilized Vitality's sort of stance on that, sort of a bigger picture stance. So politics or politicians comes from polis, P-O-L-I-S, which is Greek for city, which is civilization, and C-I-V-I-S is the Latin for civis or citizen or civilization. And obviously we are against these things in general or in principle in the Uncivilized Vitality perspective, from our perspective. And I'm very careful to define the terms. Civilization is different than society. And one of the things you'll find a lot of times is politicians will try to manipulate through the sophistry or the sophisticated use of terms. Basically, politicians, most of them, I have some friends that are politicians, fairly decent people, on a one-on-one basis. But just like George Carlin said about humanity, people are wonderful. People in groups are terrible and can be terrible and stupid. So sophisticated methods, the sophists that Socrates is always railing against, not actually after truth. They just use fancy words and willing to say anything, or they'll find a truth with a small t they want to get to, and they'll find a way to argue the way to that truth as opposed to the truth with a capital T. And one of the ways that our sophisticated system is set up to keep you civilized is by taking the political spectrum, and they will say things like, okay, they'll say, here's the middle, you're basically a moderate as far as your political ideology or bent goes. That's the other thing too, this is a forced dichotomy. Rarely do you get a third choice, and really it's only offered up as a way to accent that there is no real choice except these two. And you start to go to the right, and you get conservative, and then you get all the way out here to authoritarian, and end out here, as it said, with fascism, right? And then if you were to move to the left side of the spectrum, you would move to liberalism. Then you get out here to so-called socialism, a term I really detest. And then you get all the way out here to full-blown communism. Now, a lot of people will quibble with that, that break in sort of the political laying it out that way. But it is basically considered, if you're left or right of center, so-called, the further you go to the right, the closer you are to fascism, authoritarianism, mostly said by people on the left, claim that that's the danger. And of course, people on the right are screaming about socialism and communism as you move this way. The thing is, this is sort of a forced dichotomy. This is a sophisticated way to lay it out because they've made one kind of change. A better way to think about this is if we roll this circle up, if we roll this line up into a circle, I'll just keep using the black. The further around you go to the right, you'll end up with fascism. Or if you went around to the left, you'd end up with communism. They're basically the same thing. It's just that it's been a way that the information's been presented to most of us, or we understand, most of us think of it in a linear sense. It's very confusing. Really, it all comes around to communism or fascism, the varying shades of socialistic or communism light socialism, or sort of a rough authoritarianism which borders on fascism. These are all just terms used to parse up the whole idea of moving you up to the top of that circle, which is moving away from the so-called center, which is down here, is the individual. All right? Individualism. Individualism is the opposite of, I'm going to write that in red so you can see, exactly what I'm talking about. Individualism is at the opposite side of the circle of collectivism. All right? Collectivism. So really your political spectrum can be thought of from an anthropological sense in the way that humans organize in various forms of individualism versus collectivism, not left and right in this linear scale. It's sort of a continuum, almost a full circular continuum. If you go too far to the right, too far to the left, you're going to end up with collectivism. Collectivism is when the entire population is subservient to one particular goal, one particular hierarchy, one particular order. And usually with collectivism, you get one or two or small oligarchs or groups of elites, you could say, that are calling the shots. Central banks, that kind of thing. World leaders, all the people. That's why this whole started. These so-called dignitaries that fly to Davos each year for the World Economic Forum to meet and decide the fates of everyone else. They're very interested in collectivism. Collectivism, another word I've always used for it, is civilization. Civilization is a false hierarchy based on collectivism. This is different than a human society, which is a collection of individuals. A society is a collection of individuals. It's a crucial distinction. The Latin term socius means companion. All right. We've talked about that before. I think I have a video on my SBO or sociobiological organization theory, where we start with the individual, and then you get your families, immediate families, or kinships, and then you get your communities, and then you have your cultures and subcultures, and then cultures are going to work into collections of individuals all the way down into a society or just a collection of companions. So a collection of individuals learning to get along and work with each other towards certain shared goals, but also respecting the autonomy of the individual members, is very different than a civilization, which is an organized society that has been shifted from the focus on the individual autonomous units who have certain inalienable rights, but must work together. So there's kind of a balance toward common good and common goals of the larger socius of all of our companions. That is different than a collectivized civilization where we're working toward the common goals and the perceived good of a select few at the top. Think about beehives and ant colonies. You have one queen, and then they have all the worker drones doing everything, and the ants will sacrifice themselves just for the good of the queen. And that might seem noble and everything, but that's not exactly how human beings are. I've made the comparison before because human beings are hyper-social animals, just like bees and ants and such, or wolves, but we're different. We're humans. We're not insects. We're not canids. We are human beings, and we function best when we are at the individualistic sort of point on this sphere of a political spectrum. Uncivilized vitality means to become uncivilized. It means to head back around here to this end of the circle, basically back toward the center. If you follow that false dichotomy of a political spectrum that's linear, we are focused on individual collections of individuals working together in communities, which are made up of kinship and family units, which are made up of individuals, meaning you don't have to go along with everything your family does. You don't have to think the same way your community does. However, there's going to be a give and a take. If you don't necessarily follow along with that society, that culture, that community, then you kind of find the one you do. Don't let people throw words like tribalism or some other negativity toward that and try to. That's a sophisticated way of taking what I'm saying and forcing a reframe on that to present that in a negative light. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the way humans are naturally. We band together. We are born into families, famulus, which is the Latin term based on like servant or helper. Your family really are your servant when you're young. They're the ones that teach you how to become a productive member of society and a functioning individual, to grow up to be a healthy, happy, functioning human. And then you get into your cultures, and I've defined cultures as the way that human groups, it's mostly geographically determined, procure food or go about making sustenance. Fishing cultures. We have farming cultures or agriculture. We have pastoral or herding cultures. We have hunt and gather cultures. And then we have that fifth major culture, which are called reavers. The reavers were the ones that would just steal or harvest from the other cultures at their expense. It's piracy, basically. But in the long history of human beings on the planet, basically we fall into those five cultures. And then you get into subcultures that are more, again, geographically based, where your arts and your religions and your beliefs and your stories and your myths are more subcultural. And then society are those large uni or bi or multicultural segments of the planet where we all come together as companions to work toward common and shared goods, still respecting the autonomy of the individual, the self-reliance of the individual. We want to remain down here. We want to settle down to the bottom where we're stable and remain uncivilized. Just like any other sphere, the more we get up toward the collectivism end of this, communist, fascist, the more this thing becomes top-heavy, and inevitably it's going to turn and start one of those cycles of history, however you want to think about it, world turnings, empires falling. We just keep getting stuck in this. Now, a group notably that stayed at the individual basis of societies and maintained that wealth through individual members was the North American inhabitants, the indigenous people of North America. 12 to 14,000 years around here. Had all of the small things that we talk about. There were incidents of warfare, obviously, and of slavery and of miscarriages of justice in that culture. You shouldn't romanticize a la Rousseau, but don't let it be reframed and think that they were the pejorative uncivilized savages before the Europeans got here. That wasn't true. The Europeans invaded, took over the continent, pushed that culture aside, and introduced a new form of society, which ultimately didn't last long, and we became civilized very quickly. And now we're being pushed to civilize even more toward this collectivism end. Doesn't matter if you go right, doesn't matter if you go left. If you go too far up here, we're going to become unstable, and it's going to roll around again. Uncivilize yourself, get down here to the individualistic stage. We can help stabilize human society, or at least in North America for now. Community by community, little by little. How does Uncivilized Vitality help? Well, we've got the 5 vital paths. The 5 vital paths are going to help you become a happy and healthy individual of society. You can't have a good society if you don't have good individuals. You need to learn proper movement, nourishment, restoration, hygiene, and community. Those 5 vital paths will help you be a self-reliant, responsible, happy, healthy human being. Happy, healthy human beings, individuals make better societies. The second part we do is what's called the field craft. This is something because we live in an advanced, sort of civilized or more advanced, technologically advanced society. We're not outside doing the things. We've missed the lessons that nature has given us. So to regain those lost abilities, durability, adaptability, and capability that UV teaches, we have to get out into the field and just practice being out in the woods again. This will teach you self-reliance. And the 2 things it teaches mainly are craft and caution. So volume 2 is coming out hopefully in a few months this spring, 2024. And it is volume 2 field craft, craft and caution in the great outdoors. And then we've got a collection of just a small collection of 13 proverbs or little pieces from the collected wisdom of human beings, notable individuals throughout history. I just collected 13 of them as representative of just kind of a way to get yourself started. So those 3 areas, the happy and healthy, the craft and caution, and then those proverbs, that's the Uncivilized Vitality path. And the whole thing is set up to make you a better individual, because better individuals produce better societies and keep us away from this end or this side of the sphere, which will off balance and tip us over. Civilization is collectivism. Collectivism is bullshit. Okay, like, subscribe, leave some comments below. Listen, just leave whatever comment you want. I was going to say don't make it too political, but that was a lot. So